Governor, I want to keep moving along because, as I say, there were a lot of things you said in your announcement. You also seemed to indicate that as president, you wouldn't necessarily obey court rulings, even the Supreme Court. Here you are.
Many of our politicians have surrendered to the false god of judicial supremacy, which would allow black-robed and unelected judges the power to make law as well as enforce it.
But, Governor, we have operated under the principle of judicial review since the Marbury versus Madison case in 1803.
Judicial review is exactly what we've operated under. We have not operated under judicial supremacy. Presidents Lincoln, Jefferson, Jackson, presidents have understood that the Supreme Court cannot make a law. They cannot make it. The legislature has to make it. The executive branch has to sign it and enforce it. And the notion that the Supreme Court comes up with a ruling and that automatically subjects the two other branches to following it defies everything there is about the three equal branches of government. Chris, the Supreme Court is not the supreme branch, and for God's sake, it isn't the supreme being.
But sir,
it is the Supreme Court.
Oh, that's so embarrassing. So he's giving what he thinks is a lecture on the way American government works and the way it's supposed to work. And he ends his comments with, well, it's not the supreme being. Come on, Chris. It's the Supreme Court. It's not God. Yeah, but Mike, see, that's exactly the problem, is that you are on the record of thinking, well, I would rather listen to my God or my interpretation of my God or my interpretation of my religion. I would rather implement that than go along with, whatever the system may conclude on a different issue, whether it's something that goes through the legislature or something that the court decides is constitutional or not constitutional. He's basically admitting, I really don't give a shit about the process. I'm going to pretend like I give a shit about the process, but let's face it, when it comes down to it, the Supreme Court is not the supreme being. I listen to the supreme being. How do you not see the gigantic problems with that, Mike? First of all, it's the exact opposite of what the Founding Fathers want. The Founding Fathers were clear. We do not have a religious test for office. And we are a secular nation. There is a separation of church and state in the United States of America. That's from Thomas Jefferson himself in a letter that he wrote to somebody clarifying this exact issue. Yes, there is a wall of separation in America between church and state. People have freedom of religion. They can believe whatever religion they want to believe, or they can believe no religion at all. But no one religion is supposed to rule over the rest of us. But that's the other thing is, like, if you take a Mike Huckabee quote and you just translate it into Arabic, and you show it to a conservative, they would piss their pants, they'd be so scared, and all of a sudden it would be them who's arguing the loudest for separation of church and state, because in their mind they'd say, separation of mosque and state, can't have no damn Islam, no damn terrorists running nothing. But, when you change the quote to a Mike Huckabee quote, they think, oh, I'm with him, man, he's a good Christian boy right there, that's what I'm talking about. But the problem is it's equally made up on both sides. Yes, Islam is untrue and ridiculous, as is Christianity. And we're not supposed to make laws based off of that. But to Mike Huckabee, it's one of those things where it's like a duh. It's like, of course I'm supposed to make laws based off of my religion. Hello? It's what I base my life on. My stupid made-up book from thousands of years ago written by some idiots in the desert. That's what I believe, and that's what I'm going to implement. And then also, let's go a step further here. The comments that he made about the way the government functions are dead wrong also. He made it seem like, yes, what I said was reasonable. That the Supreme Court, no, they don't have the final say in everything there, Chris. Come on now. They're not the supreme branch. Ha ha ha. He thinks he's clever because he thinks he's using cute rhetorical tricks here to make a point. But the thing is, there's no there. This is just rhetoric. He's literally arguing semantics. He's making different noises with his mouth. Not Supreme Court, supreme branch of government. It's not that something. Yeah. He thinks that's convincing. But what he doesn't understand is what judicial review actually is. Judicial review checks the constitutionality of something the executive branch might do. So they could look at, some form of taking away the rights of an American citizen. Oh, we're going to drone this American citizen to death. oh, we're going to, not give this person a trial. We're not going to read them their Miranda rights or something like that. And it's part and parcel of what the Supreme Court does to say, no, you're not allowed to do that. When the executive branch, when the president violates the Constitution, it is the job of the Supreme Court to say, actually, you can't do that because what you're doing is illegal and what you're doing is unconstitutional. So you must stop right now. We don't live in a country that's a fascist dictatorship like Nixon wanted, where he said, when the president does it, it's not illegal. Actually, asshole, that's exactly what it is. Sorry, you don't get to override it because you're the president. That would make us no different than any other fascist dictatorship around the world. In theory, that's the way it's supposed to work. But Mike Huckabee is in essence saying the opposite. He's saying, I don't care what the Supreme Court says because they're not the Supreme Branch. So what they say is irrelevant. But Mike, you don't get it. Judicial review does mean that on constitutional issues, they can tell you, you can't do X, Y, and Z because it's unconstitutional. He doesn't get that. He doesn't get that. Because Mike Huckabee doesn't know shit about civics. He doesn't know shit about politics or the way our government actually functions. He definitely doesn't understand the economy either. He's just a religious zealot. He's a fundamentalist. He's the Christian Taliban, and he wants you to put him in power so we can turn America into the Christian version of Saudi Arabia. Thanks, but no thanks, big guy. Go back to your shitty show on Fox.